Hi, my name is Gabriela Suriel, and this is the Three Blind Millennials podcast, where we will be discussing about life, about just living and learning to live life with no handbook, no rules. So let me introduce you to our other hosts as well.
It's Naomi.
My name is Danny.
And then we also have our guest today.
Hello, I'm Mustafah.
All right, so we're gonna get started. Today's episode is about relationships. So we're gonna start by going over a deep question of the day, and we each will only have about a minute to respond and give our opinion. So our question of today is, what is the difference between love and lust?
All right,
Who wants to start?
Danny.
No, I was actually
Us guys, we're like,
yeah.
lust.
I'm monitoring the levels right now.
Wow, that was a nice out. I guess I'll take a stab at this.
Okay.
So, love and lust. That's a big question. That's something I asked myself much of my teenage life and into my young adult life. Because oftentimes as a teenager, we confuse the two, you know. Most puppy love is a dangerous combination of mostly lust and hormones mixed in with I like you, you like me. But do you really like me? Do you like me? You know what I mean? So the difference, I think, is in the actions and like the real feelings. Because with lust, there's a bit of a cap. You know what I mean? For guys, we lust after women, so there are things that we do in pursuit of that lust. But as a man, there are things that you do in pursuit of love, and there's a difference there. And the big difference, I think, is authenticity. You know, when you're pursuing lust, you're pursuing a moment, so you're only thinking about the moment and momentary satisfaction.
Yeah.
Love is more long-term. You're thinking about the future. So whenever you're looking at a guy's action, does it connote something that is about building and growing together, or is it about the moment, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest difference between the two. One is momentary, touch and go, and the other is about building, you know, the foundation and the building blocks for something in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. I think it's also has to do like with intention, which is kind of saying what you were saying. Like personally, I don't have like much experience. Like if I was to do something for somebody, I usually would want to do it out of, you know, the kindness of my heart. If like I don't try to pursue me personally, to speak out of my own experience, I don't like want to pursue somebody only out of lust, because then I feel like I'm not gonna get any value out of it afterwards, you know. So that's kind of my side of it, you know.
Yeah.
And I think those are both some really good points, because the way I kind of look at it is that lust is more so when you pursue somebody because they look good, or they have something that you want to add to your volume, like they're really wealthy, or they have really great connections with certain kinds of peoples, or they're the party people and you want to be at those parties with them. And I feel like those initiations are from the lust of things, like what you see at first is what people are typically attracted to. But then from lust, you can either say, oh, okay, I like this thing, but now it's not giving me that high anymore, so I'm gonna move on to my next lust. Or you can start with the lust, and then you can move on and dive deeper into like a love, where okay, now you see this person past those initial images, and you're moving past something that you have to work through, or the problems, or the ugly, and it's because the reasons why is deeper than the lust is the love that you stay for. Yeah.
So I think it's the difference between like McDonald's and home cooked food.
Oh, okay, that's a good one.
Because I tear a Big Mac up in 2 seconds. A nice meal, you just want to
Right.
savor it.
Yeah.
And it takes time to make home cooked.
That's
Yeah,
true.
right.
Yeah,
It
that's
takes
a good
time.
point.
Just pull up to the drive-thru real quick and get
Exactly.
your meal. You have to like prep, you have to buy the ingredients,
Yeah.
you have to spend hours to cook it and give it like that nurturing love. Like you be sweating in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Right.
But it is rewarding in the end. So
Yeah.
that
It's
was
also
a good
healthier.
example. Yes,
Yes.
It is healthier than
Killing
lust.
these analogies.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so great. That was a great deep question of the day. So now to move into our topic sections, I was curious, what is a movie or a song that helped you resonate with what love means for you? So like growing up, we listen to things on the radio, or we watch movies, certain TV shows. Like, what was that thing that made you say, oh, this is what I want when I grow older. This is what love should look like for me.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna take my take because Naomi and I, we have a lot of conversations about fantasy and reality, if you remember. And that was my confusion with love. Since I was younger, I used to equate love with what I see in fantasy. And when I say fantasy, I mean like what's perpetrated in the media, you know, in the movies, Romeo and Juliet, The Notebook, all these different things. I kiss so we can do something about those different things. And for a long time, I'm like, damn, I don't really get weak in the knees. Like I don't feel the same things that this person feels. So for me, I had to meet a woman who's here with us on the podcast. I had to meet a woman that made me think about what love is. Because for me, it's like that feeling of home. You know what I mean? It's that feeling of like, somebody mess with her? It's like natural. It's not something that I could put in like a movie. It's just a feeling and like a magnetism towards somebody, you know? And I'm more of a realist kind of person, so I'm not gonna say like, I get woozy when she touched me, and, you know, like very alliterative things that expresses this feeling. So for me, it's just a really strong feeling that I haven't felt for anyone in my life, you know. So for me, it didn't take a movie, you know, but for most people, it'll take a movie or like a song or something. But for me, it just took a real experience, you know.
I feel that too. I know for myself, I grew up in a Hispanic household, so my mom would always have like telenovelas on, and it would be like Pasión de Gavilanes, and it's literally like, I realized even today, how just watching that growing up as a kid, I thought that love had to be dramatic, or I thought like you had to go through some crazy stuff in order to, like, that's what love was, like going through some dramatic experiences where like he loves you so much that there was like an evil stepmother trying to get in the way or this, that, but the love was so strong. And I realized that in life I was chasing feelings as opposed to like chasing like, and I realized this, that love is not a feeling, it's more so like, love is, sometimes you love when you don't feel anything, like, and that's the true test of love. Like, even when you don't feel like you want to talk to that person, or you feel that you don't want to do something for them because you don't feel love yourself. And it's like, I realized that love is just more than the feeling, it's more so like you doing it because at the end of the day, you love that person, no matter what you feel, no matter what you're going through. Yeah. So that's what I learned in my experience.
I agree. You
okay.
want to say something?
No. So a movie, a particular movie that came to mind, right? So Up, right?
What?
Up.
That's a good one.
Good, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, so say if like someone like has no idea what like love is, it really shows, like that movie shows how love is more of like of an action more than anything, because even after, like say if no one knew anything about like love in general, and then like after the person died, it's like, why would he still go back up to, you know, to the falls, right? But it was to, I guess, to honor her memory even after she passed, because he loved her so much, you know. So that was something when I was a kid, like, okay, I get it, you know.
Yeah,
that's
it definitely breaks it down.
Yeah, that is interesting. I know, like when I was thinking of different kinds of movies that I wanted to imitate in my own life, I thought of like Titanic.
Oh yes.
I felt like that.
I love the Notebook.
Yeah. I love both of them. That was our thing with me and Mustafah, exactly, because he was telling me like, you're living in a fantasy world and you're basing your realities off of something that's not real, which I had to come to terms with
Yeah.
myself, is
Because
that
first of all, Rose let Jack in the water.
That's right. That's not loyal.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
but Jack is willing to put her on that.
Yeah, but he
thing
could have. He
instead
could have
of
like.
I know, right?
She
I was like, he could have shared it.
No.
Yeah, it was
Well, I'm
all
just joking
dramatic.
about
Yeah,
I know.
as you were saying.
But particularly was the fact that Rose was supposed to marry somebody else, and this person was like her ideal person. You know, they were in the same social class, and he was smart, and the families vibed real well. But the only thing that kept her outside of that was that she loved Jack. She didn't love this man that she was supposed to be with. And it was that idea of like the person that you're meant to be with is like this unexplainable romance that you like, you get high, you get really excited about them, and they make you happy, you don't know why. And that's like my idea of love, is that despite everything that it's supposed to be, you gravitate towards this person because the only thing you can't explain it is that it's love. And so that's like kind of the standard that I held the idea of love to, along with like different songs. But then I realized that, okay, let's say Rose and Jack stay together, like they're gonna argue, but they don't show that in the movie, and they're gonna have problems and things like that. And so I feel like a big issue today is that we have that lust part of it, that romantic, magical aspect of it, but then we don't realize that it's work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
And I had this theory that I've been working around. Would you guys say love is a construct? And what I mean by that is time is a construct.
Right.
Time is a thing that exists that we give meaning to by this thing, this watch, or the sun's rise and fall. But at the end of the day, it's just a signal for moving forward, you know. With love, would you say it's the same kind of construct that you really can't put into words because everyone's experiences as it relates to it is different? And it's just a way to explain a connection between two people?
Yeah, everybody's love is different. I think, anybody else want to take it?
Well, I feel like when people say that time is a construct, because I do believe that time is a construct, but it's also kind of like symbolizing that time are you saying that time is a construct in the sense that it's not real?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Or it's like,
And in the sense that you can't really put it into words. We try to define time by finite things like the clock.
right.
You know what I mean? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's how we say this is time. When the sun is down, that means it's night time.
Right.
You know
Got
what I mean?
it.
But somewhere else it's daytime.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, okay.
You know, somewhere else it's 12.
Right, so time
See
is
how
relative.
it's
to where
relative.
you are.
You
I
get-
don't, I don't think, I don't think
That's
it's the
what I'm
same
saying.
thing with love though, because for that you can have your watch and it tells you exactly what it what it is. But with like love, I guess there's no real watch for.
Well, that's what he's saying,
Yeah.
is that sometimes people try to give it, like, put it in a box and say this is what love is. Whereas he's saying that a person can't define love across the board for everybody. Love is different for each individual, and each relationship has its own definition of what love is for them as it works for them. Because, like, for instance, a lot of times I'll talk to other people to get their perspective on their relationship and why, they're in love with each other and what that is for them. But it's completely different than how it is for Mustafah and I. And what works for us doesn't work for a lot of other people. For instance, like, some people have a certain kind of dynamic when they do everything together, and that's how they express their love, is that, oh, we love to do everything together, this is how we bond, this is why we're in love, blah, blah, blah. However, with Mustafah and I, as though we do a lot together, we don't do everything together. And for us, that works because that's a healthy balance for us, to have our space apart and to enjoy things with other people and then come together and say, okay, now this is our time. So I feel like that's kind of what he's saying, is that, like, you can't put a definition for everybody.
I feel like the essence of love is like, it's love, but the way that it's expressed amongst other people is like very different. Because it's like, for example, like the love that I have for my mom wouldn't be the same love that I would have for my man.
Right.
Or even for my brother, or it wouldn't be the same. So I definitely feel like the essence of love is just like, it's like that pure love, but the way that it's expressed is like different. Yeah.
Yeah, just like pure time, and the way that it's expressed is different.
Yeah.
You know, I like to make correlations between things.
Right. Yeah.
And then that also goes into like the idea of love language and understanding your partner's love language.
Yeah.
Because like me, I'm a really sensitive person.
Okay.
So like Mustafah had to understand, like, you can't just be coming at me hard. You have to talk to me in a certain kind of way.
He's like,
long road.
to express something. But then I also had to learn his love language, and meaning the fact that like if he's not being overly affectionate, it doesn't mean that he doesn't love me, but it's just that he's expressing it in another way. So I had to say, okay, this is the way he expresses love. It doesn't have to be the way, you know, I want it or the way that I do it, but it's his own way, and I have to understand that's the way he expresses it.
And I think it's important that what you just said, that's okay unless it's toxic.
Right.
Unless there are things that are detrimental to like your happiness and your well-being. I think that's the universal difference. Yeah. If it hurts to a point of like unhealthiness, I think, you know, because there are some people that will take that definition and self-destruct in order to deal with something that's so toxic. You know, we had the conversation earlier today about also discerning between what's toxic in love and what's genuine.
So let's talk about it.
Let's talk about
What do people think are toxic / healthy in a relationship?
Well, I think toxic stuff is kind of like, you know, like constantly like cheating on somebody, or just like, you know, them like beating you, you know, stuff like that. Like especially when beating is like you're physically unhealthy because he's just like, you know.
Right. So there's the emotional abuse, which is like the cheating, the physical abuse.
I say like being passive aggressive sometimes. So
I'm
it's
a
like
passive aggressive person.
I am too. I would make like little subtle comments.
That's the way of me, like kind of like, cause like I grew up in a household where my parents, when they were angry, like they would yell, they would curse, like they would just like do the most. And for me, if I'm angry, I don't want to have to yell or curse at you. So like my healthy way of going about it is being passive aggressive.
Okay.
So saying like, here you go. Here's your dinner tonight. And it's kind of, but I understand like that can be toxic, because instead of communicating, I'm like, this is how you know I'm mad at you. And
exactly. Or like, hey baby, is everything okay? 2 hours later. I just think it's funny.
You know, he's been playing this back. It's gonna be like 2 days from now. He's like, hey, remember when you said this?
Exactly. It'll come up later.
Yeah. Sometimes I would bring up things from like that happened 6 months ago or like a year ago. It's like, or it's like they'll do like the littlest thing. Like if they move like a flip flop or something on the floor, it's like, oh, that's exactly how he did that 6 months ago. Like he did this, and that. And then I'll just go into that tangent, and that is unhealthy. That is unhealthy. Like not being too. I believe like we all make mistakes, but I feel like another sign of toxicity is when you hold someone like in chains or bound to the mistakes that they did in the past, and not just letting it go. And moving on from it.
But see, the only other thing I have to say about that is my issue is not that I want to hold you accountable to things that we supposed to have like worked through already, and I forgave you about. But what I don't like is when I told you I didn't like this thing last year, and then now we're in 2020 and you're doing that thing again. Because now I'm like, okay, this is an issue that keeps reoccurring. Let's talk about what happened when it first happened, when you first did it, because obviously you didn't understand me when I said like I don't like it, or like there was miscommunication. So like that's my idea of like bringing up old stuff, is when it comes back up today. I feel like the only way to kill it is to go back from like when it originally happened, even if that's in the past.
No.
How do you feel about that?
I think that's very true, especially if it's something that you worked on, and especially if the person said that it was something that they were going to work on, and it comes up again, you should definitely bring it up. I think that's part of communication. But the way I see it too is it's a process, you know what I mean? Unless it's something like super crazy that they did before, and it's something that should never be done again, and they do it again, and it's like, okay, that's an issue, you know what I mean? Like cheating or something horrible. But I know for myself, there are some things that I had to work out of my system when I get into relationships. So there's like a transition period of certain things that you're accustomed to not working when you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
And sometimes that'll be like something simple, like when you get into a relationship, is like making plans without thinking about your girlfriend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when something like that happens, and you have that, and you say you're not going to do it again, and you do well, and then something happens really quick, and you do it, and you're like, oh man, I forgot, and then you go and try to fix it, and then that person, I think like you said, it's good to bring it up, but sometimes people make mistakes.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I think it should be communicated. I think that's very important. And if it's like a pattern that keeps on going, that's when it becomes an issue.
Right.
But I don't think you should be quiet about it either. If that happened, you mentioned like, hey, you did that thing again, and I'll say, you're right, I did do that thing again.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was an oversight. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And we move forward, and I get stronger and better with it. I think that's healthy. But to like assassinate somebody for making like a mistake again,
right? That's
like
true.
really close to the other time, I think it's just a balance with anything.
Yeah.
So that brings me to another question.
Okay.
Is forgiveness, and like when do we forgive, and when do we accept the incident as a time to move forward and get out the relationship? Because like for
That's a good
instance, a big thing that we talked about already a lot is cheating. That's come up, and sometimes I feel like it's okay to forgive your spouse if they
For cheating?
Yeah, sometimes it is something that happened one time, and there's couples where it happened and they work through it and they find a way to get past it, and then supposedly it never happens again, right? But then for other people, the cheating never stops. And so then, the person keeps forgiving and forgiving and forgiving, and they're ignoring the fact that like this is never gonna change and you should have got out a long time ago. So when do we forgive, and then when do we like draw the line? Or maybe it depends on the person. Like maybe cheating one time, like Mustafah is like the done deal.
Damn done.
So I actually listened to this video by this man. His name is Stefan Speaks or something like that. And he was saying how when women cheat and men cheat, it's like completely different. And he was saying that sometimes men cheat out of emotional disconnect. So there's like an emotional disconnect that happens. And then he'll say like sometimes like when men cheat, like the partner that they're cheating with is not even as attractive as the person that they're with, because it's like they're looking for something in another person that their wife or their spouse or their significant other is not giving them. So he was saying how cheating wouldn't necessarily be like a valid excuse as to like cutting somebody off.
And I get
So,
that.
yeah.
Because I was listening to the Red Table Talk, and they did an episode about cheating. And one of the biggest things that they highlighted was that a lot of times when you're in a relationship, so like let's take Mustafah and I in a relationship, and one of us cheat, the other person is gonna like take that to heart. Like I would sit there and say like you violated me, like you violated our relationship, you disrespected me, like you knew what you was doing and you did it anyways knowing that it was gonna hurt me. Like you can't love me like that. That's the way I would think. But in the episode they kind of explained that, the receiver, the victim of it thinks that it's about them, but really it's about that person. Like if another person cheats, it has nothing to do with you. They didn't do it because they hate you or they don't love you, but they did it because they were working something out within themselves. And so like to go back to the point of like that's why sometimes it is okay to forgive that person, because you have to realize that this person is not doing it because they don't love you. They're doing it because they're acting out on their own with like their own issues. Not to excuse it.
No, not to excuse
I think that's important.
Yeah.
Don't excuse it at all. My feelings on cheating, like I look at it like how can I say it? Walking on, let's say you got like a nice bed, right? And you took time and you like made sure it was all smoothed out and it was made all nicely, and then you got white sheets, it's cool. You just washed, everything's awesome. And then someone jumps on your bed with dirty sneakers.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In your room, there's like a sense of betrayal or like these stains that can't come out.
Right.
You know what I mean? And particularly when it comes to sleeping with another person, I hold weight to that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I do understand, and this is not excuses, man, because I'm not about excusing men. I'm a man myself, and I think more men should take accountability for their lust. Yeah. Because I do understand we are predisposed to procreate. You know what I mean? I do understand there are primitive things that drives us to desire this, this thing. But I also understand that we're humans and we've grown to a level to know that that's wrong, and we've entered this contract where we say we want this one woman forever. You know what I mean? Despite those primitive thoughts and those different things. And it's possible to deal with those temptations, just like women have temptations as well. So, not to excuse that, but for me, I just think that I would prefer to break up with somebody than to sleep with someone else. I feel like it still hurts to break up with somebody, but to cheat on somebody is worse.
Yeah.
I'd rather break up with you and look like an asshole than cheat on you.
But I agree. It's definitely a lack of like personal discipline that I think it comes down to. But I do try to like separate the difference between like a one-time mistake, because we all make mistakes, and sometimes things are reoccurring and sometimes things are just a mistake. But there goes that. So another question for you guys. As two males in the room, one particularly who is a black male, what do you guys think you need out of a woman to feel loved and to feel like you're satisfied in the relationship?
You want to take the female on this?
Okay.
I mean, I don't think. Oh, okay. I guess I'm going. So, I don't think it's that hard. Honestly, I'm not trying to sound. At least for me, I guess. It's I mean, it's not.
You men always say that, but then those be the same.
I'll see how this goes down as time progresses. I think as long as I feel, appreciated, as long as there's good, communication, in the relationship, there's trust in the relationship. Like I could go out with my friends without you like calling me every 10 minutes. To see what I'm doing. Right. And I think it kind of really, breaks down to trust.
Yeah, I agree. Like for me, we're simple guys. Guys are simple. Yeah. But for me, boundaries are big. Boundaries for me are big because I understand that we're together, but I also understand that we're two individuals and there needs to be space. Because with anything, when there's too much of it, it becomes too much, over time. And I'm always forward thinking. I'm always thinking about over time. And I don't want to, so I think there should be some space. It doesn't have to be like, okay, I'll talk to you next week. Right. You know what I mean? But, you talk all day and you check in with each other, you hang out a few times a week, or, you go out, you do different things. But that's boundaries for me. Another thing is, someone who you can have a good time with, you know what I mean? Someone who doesn't, especially as a black male or just in general, there are a lot of pressures and stresses, and even from my industry, there are a lot of things that I go through mentally with pressure and stress to make it. I'm in an industry where it's almost lottery-like in order to reach that highest level, so there are stresses and pressures that come with that. I make all of my money freelance. So right now, I don't know when my next check is going to be, but I still have bills. I still have things I have to do. So there are different pressures that comes with life in general. I just need someone who doesn't add to that. Yeah, I think that's important because there are women that add to that stress.
And so what's an example? Because I know a lot of times the stereotype is that women, they want to talk to you all the time and they want to know your every move, and some guys feel like that's stressful. So when you say stress,
there's a balance. I understand, we want to talk all the time. You and I talk a lot. And it's been more than what I have been doing in recent times, but that wasn't a game changer, you know what I mean? I think the stress part comes on the overabundance of it, or the lack of trust, or or like the pessimistic nature of things. You know what I mean? Like, who is that? Who is that? Did you do that? Da-da-da. You know, like that line of questioning.
Yeah.
And I could see if the guy did something to ruin the trust. That makes sense. So you want to know exactly what he was doing because before he was doing that same thing. You understand that.
Yeah.
But if it's a guy who genuinely, you know, has never given you a reason to distrust him, you know, I think taking that step back and easing back and letting him be who he is, you know what I mean, is important.
Right.
Now, granted, that doesn't mean like turn a blind eye to everything. And I'm not saying that because that's not realistic. You know, you want to know who this chick is that's liking every picture. You know what I mean? But just in general, I'm not dating someone who has like the characteristics of someone that adds to that stress. Although we do have our times, but that's normal because I'm a particular way, and you know what I mean. But someone like that adds to that stress is like nagging. We don't. You know what I mean? I can't explain it.
Right.
But it's just like that nagging, super clingy.
Right.
Like I have a friend that I won't name.
Who may or may not hear this.
Who may or may not hear this, I hope. You know, if he's going somewhere, he's getting calls 23 times.
Wow.
She knows where he's going.
Right.
Yeah.
She's calling 23 times, and it's not an emergency.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is okay.
That kind of thing is like,
Yeah,
ugh.
and it takes an adjustment because, like me, as a girl who is dating a guy that does a lot because he's a film producer, so sometimes that requires him being on set for like 12 hours a day and not really communicating like what's going on. I had to learn that, you know, I'm not gonna have to keep tabs on him, but as long as like we check in the morning, we check in via text like sometime throughout the day to say, hey, like I'm still alive, and
Hey,
then and then again at night, then like for me that's okay. And like as a woman, and I discuss with like my girls, and maybe you can give me like your opinion. I feel like sometimes we do have to learn how to like occupy our time
Right.
ourselves and not
Yeah.
like just be so dependent upon like our man being there all
Yeah.
the time to provide that sense of like happiness
Yeah.
that sometimes we seek.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I know in my, cause like I've had like one relationship and I used to like, it's like I didn't really know like what a relationship entailed.
Right.
But one thing I did learn that I was doing is that I was like putting my value onto somebody else and not really like finding that value within myself. Even like the whole thing with self-esteem, like I had like really bad self-esteem even to begin with, and then I would try to find ways for him to kind of like make him responsible for it, or like make him responsible for making me feel good, making me feel happy. And I realized that it's like that does not come from him whatsoever.
Right,
like that has
exactly.
to come from myself, and that's something that I'm continuing to learn. It's something that I've definitely evolved a lot from, not depending on somebody else, but learning to see like, oh, okay, like I can be dope by myself.
Right.
Like I'm cool by myself.
Right.
Like I think I'm a cool person, you know? And it's like learning to have that self-confidence and not let it come from somebody else.
Yeah, because I feel like as a woman, we're built usually we're built a little bit differently than men, even though there's sometimes women who act just like a man, so to speak. But like being that you brought up your previous relationship, like I was once in a relationship where I used to feel like I had the most fun when I was with this guy, and then I had to learn after leaving that relationship that was a really toxic habit to have. Like you need to learn how to have fun with or without this person.
Right.
But like it's important to appreciate the fun that you have, and then appreciate the fact that you can still be okay without them. And I feel like that's what it comes from with women being so like codependent on this man, is that they feel like this man is like what you said, like has the value of happiness, of love, of making me feel good, of making me feel confident, and all these kinds of things where as women sometimes we have to learn not to do that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about gender roles.
Oof. What are those? What are those?
In a relationship, do you guys believe in gender roles?
No.
Or
They're done up.
Yeah.
I like gender roles.
I mean, we live in a wild, wild west society now, where anything goes.
Right.
Because I think we've kind of progress to a level where all the boundaries are gone. So I mean, if you choose to create this set of things that you want to abide by, that's fine. But the truth of the matter is, you know, in this generation, most males aren't going to be paying the bills,
Right.
you know what I mean, by themselves.
Right.
You know, so that is dead. You know, I think gender roles should be defined between the two people.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that too.
I think now it's going to be like, all right, we have to create a list.
Like,
Yeah. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Because I feel like every relationship, like there's somebody who has strength and weaknesses in different kinds of areas, and you just have to figure out who has the strengths and who has the weaknesses, and how can we work together with what we both bring to the table. That's why I like gender roles, because I don't have the muscles, he has the muscles. So like he does the
we got a camera.
he does the building the furniture. You know, I feel like when it snows outside, I'll cook the meals and he can go shovel
She
the
makes
snow.
my hot cocoa.
And that works for us. Where like sometimes for other people
Right.
they feel like they don't want to do that, and then we have to find what works for the two of them.
Yeah, I feel like with my parents, like I don't know if I have like, so like for example, my dad, he's not the type of man that will build something for you. Like he will, like for example, like I've always built like my own desks, like from
Wow.
IKEA and
That's
stuff
impressive.
like that. Yeah, well,
That's
it's because it's like he'll help me like with one board, and then he's like, "Oh, you got this," and then he'll let me do it by myself, and then it's like I realize that he's like that with my mom. Like she can be like more of the handy man, but not really. So it's like I feel like it's really defined with your connection and who the person is.
Yeah. Agree. So do we count like door holding among that? Is that universal that guys should do?
I think so.
Yeah.
But that's me, and I feel like that comes from a place of like, before I got into a relationship with you, I had to reevaluate what I believe I'm worth and what my standards were, and then use that as like my roadmap or guideline when picking who the next person I'm going to be in a relationship. And lucky for you, you made the cut.
Oh, snap.
You did all those things that I was requiring out of a man, which included holding the doors and speaking to me in a certain kind of way, and you know, taking me out to certain kinds of places, and just like watching how you moved with me, and then how you moved with yourself. Like how were you when I wasn't around? And I thought those kinds of things were really important, and sometimes people don't think about that. Like, what am I worth? And I feel like I'm worth you holding the door for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you say holding open the door, do you mean like in a like relationship or like in general?
I say both.
Both.
Yeah, because like I think, especially being a gentleman, there's like a gentleman's code.
Yeah.
A gentleman's code.
Yeah.
And that means holding the doors. You know, typically in that sense for like women. You know.
Yeah, because some women don't like that.
Some women. Remember what I was telling you when we first started dating? I always like made the comment like, "Oh, you new millennial women, you know, because now women will like rush to just open the door themselves because of how society has changed. Before the woman would wait for the guy to come open the door. Now it's like, here, take the door. I'm going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a change there, but. I'm usually like the person to try to jump ahead and do it. Sometimes I don't, you know, but because the changing of society, you know, that was more of a thing when I was younger. Like, oh, he's such a gentleman, you know, keeping that alive. But that was the end of it.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it,
Yeah.
chivalry. Yeah, growing up, it was like, oh, he's a gentleman, but because it was dying, I didn't know that at the time. They had to announce it because it's something that wasn't universal.
So, and because we're starting to run out of time, but we have time for 2 more questions. One thing I wanted to ask was, do you guys feel like your upbringing or background has an impact on how you view relationships, or a sense of chivalry, or how you treat women or men or the opposite sex, whatever sex you're attracted to? And so, like, what did that look like, and why did that impact you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No.
I think that your upbringing is 100% affects like how you see, you know, anything in general, like not just like love. You know, and say if you grow up in a household that a father is beating your mother, you can walk away from that and you could think, oh, this is how we treat women, or you could go walk away with that, or like, oh, I don't want anybody to hurt like my mother or my significant other like this. Like they can, like there's a good and there's a bad.
Yeah.
You could get out of it, and it's like it really depends on the person, like how they take it.
Yeah.
You know, so I think 100%, like it definitely affects, you know, how you view love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of grew up in an environment where like my parents are separated, so I got to see a lot of different perspectives of like how my mom was treated by different kinds of men and how my dad treated different kinds of women, and then from that was able to kind of choose like how I wanted to be treated, and a lot of which where I felt like my mom deserved better a lot of times, and I felt like my dad should have done better a lot of times, and I used those instances as like my foundation of being kind of maybe a little bit harder than I should be, or like expectations of saying like, no, I don't want to be treated that way, or like I don't want you to, you know, to kind of repeat some habits that my dad had, for instance, because I disagreed with it, which I think is a little bit interesting, because a lot of times people in my position would kind of feel like that's okay, like that's the standard.
Yeah, I mean it's fair. It's definitely fair. Like you guys just said, basically nature versus nurture. I think we are all a product of our experiences and the things that we see. So for me, I had very old parents. My mother is the grandmother of the family. My mother's in her late 60s. Wow. You know, that's most people's grandparents' age. So I was raised with the late 60s kind of mindset, someone who grew up in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And a lot of those gender roles and a lot of those ideologies I was raised with. But at the same time, you know, I grew up in the 90s and in the early 2000s and the 1000s, or late, you know, 2010s, whatever. So it's like a melding of those two, you know. So I think we are moving away from the society that we were in, but I still took a lot of those values, like how you treat a woman, how you treat a person, you know what I mean? Today it's more of a person, but I treat women a particular way because I understand that they are the mother of society, you know.
And I think it's interesting because you treat me the way you treat your mom. So
Yes,
I think that is very important to like notice in a guy is how he treats his mom, because I feel like if he treats his mom like trash, he might treat you like trash.
I don't treat my mom like trash. No, I don't. You know, but I am vocal to both of them about when they nag me and stuff like that. But you know, these are the women of my life, and you know, as such, you know, I love to treat them the same. You know, and there are times when I would get them the same things for like, you know, certain holidays.
Would they notice?
They don't notice.
Just kidding. Finding out about this right now. What?
No, I'm kidding. But you know, some holidays do overlap, so you're sending out flowers to two sets of people. It's the same thing, you know. But yeah, of course, it's your upbringing and how you apply that, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was some great stuff.
Yeah.
That we got to talk about. Do you guys have any other comments, questions?
I'm loving how we flew through all of these questions.
Yeah.
You know, it was short and sweet, and we kind of kept it moving, and you know, I appreciate you guys having me. This was awesome discourse and a good conversation for people our age, because quiet as it's kept, or not really quiet, the relationship, the zeitgeist now is terrible. Like when I think about the market out there, like if I had to be single again, good God. You know what I mean?
To end the show too, what are some red flags you would give for men about women, like?
That's a good one.
Oof. Well, you should know the one. Let's chill. That's a huge red flag.
No. I mean for men, about women.
Oh, about women. Oh, sorry.
I mean, you can do the one for women too. I think that would be appreciative for women out there looking for a nice guy to.
So to men first.
Yeah.
Dang. I don't know. I feel like women are. I mean, I feel like. I don't know.
Like I've had some interesting experience with certain kinds of men, and I feel like behaviors that are red flags. Like you were saying, like the let's chill thing. I feel like him picking up the first bill kind of says a lot, in a relationship.
Yeah.
If he wants you to pay for things, I feel like he's always gonna want you to go half in a relationship. And I kind of like the idea of a man like making the initiative sometimes, or if he never wants to bring you home to meet his mom.
Yeah.
Like those kinds of things.
See, women are slick. Men are just dumb. So like for us, because we're the ones that pursue,
Right.
there are a lot of things that we would overlook and not care about in pursuit of lust or love. So a lot of the things that we do see are ignored on purpose, I guess. Because there are certain things that I would see in a woman that's like a red flag. I would say maybe a lot of guy friends. But the reason why I say women are tricky is because you can't really fit every woman in a box.
Yeah.
Right.
But some women do have a lot of guy friends, but that's not how they are.
Right.
There are some women that have a lot of guy friends, and that's exactly
So do you
Right.
think that your significant other should have a lot of friends of the opposite sex? Like, do you think you can be friends with somebody if they're the opposite sex? Like a true platonic friendship?
You know, I mean, with my experience, the women that has mostly guy friends, it's just not.
Yeah, that is interesting
Ideal.
because I know I don't really.
I mean, I feel like the partner should be the best friends.
Yeah.
Like, my man should be my best friend, and I shouldn't have a best friend of the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's disrespectful to him.
Yeah.
And I would want to have like that connection with him where it's like I can tell him I want to be best friends before like anything.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like the same thing for me. Like, if I knew he had a girl best friend and he was telling her stuff about me in the relate, I would feel a type of way.
Yeah.
You know?
That's
So
different.
That's different.
As opposed to
That's
him,
different.
like he can tell his mom.
Right.
You know,
I
like,
agree. There is a line on that.
yeah, but it depends too, because I know there's some females that are genuine and you know they're cool,
Right.
but there's some other girls, like I know my kinds, like some
Right.
girls can be
Yeah.
a little,
Like they have their own agenda.
right, yes.
And I think most people do. I think the trick with the opposite sex is our primitive nature. You know what I mean? Because for me, I have good female friends,
Right.
but I'm not with them every week. I don't text them every day. I don't,
Right.
You know what I mean? And then when I am hanging out with my good friend, Naomi's there. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's never like a girl that I'm texting throughout every week and I'm partying with, going to her house. And
Yeah.
I just feel like it's a little messy. You know what I mean? Because oftentimes there are a lot of best friends that been with their best guy friends, but there are some that haven't.
Right.
But it's just messy when you're dealing with somebody, you know, especially since from a guy's perspective, like when I was in college, I had a lot of good friends, or I had friends that I talked to throughout the week, but there would be certain situations that if the ball was passed, I would shoot it if you could catch my drift.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I feel that.
And I'm just honest about that. You know, it wasn't like that I would cross the line, but if they crossed the line, I wouldn't say, "Ew, Icky, you're my best friend."
Right.
So,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? Like, I think I can't speak for everyone, but I think most people were in that situation.
Yeah.
You know, it's just situations where the line is never crossed.
Right.
It's just positive. You know what I mean? But oftentimes the lines can get crossed, like at a party or in a situation where you're getting too comfortable, or you know what I mean. And that just happens naturally with males or females. But like we said, not everyone falls.
Right.
in
Not
that.
everyone does.
And I didn't really cross the line with my people because it's messy. You know what I mean? Even my good friend, that was never a thing. We worked together. It was we never came to that point
Right.
where something like that happened. But I did have friends that I don't talk to now that, you know, in that time, you know, as a guy, I'll speak honestly. You know, and Naomi would know this. You know, I speak honestly. In that time, you know, if someone came over like the line, then, you know, I'm not gonna lie and say that I wouldn't do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you guys are cuddling, that was the thing in college. You had friends that you cuddle with. which is not really a friend thing.
Right.
Mhm.
But that's kind of crossing the line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's just like a lot of weird things that happens. That's why I'm like, you might as well just stay away from that
Right.
in general, because
Not put
It's
yourself in
messy.
certain situations.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well.
I hope I didn't get myself into no trouble by saying
Good
that.
job.
Who are these friends?
No, we have good communication
Yeah.
on things.
That's good.
There's no secrets. But yeah, this is great, guys.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, can't wait for the next episode. Thank you,
Right.
Mustafah, for sharing your thoughts and
Yes.
opinions about things.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, and stay tuned for the next one.
So we
Are we done?